association, where we have the systems that are correct, that are in line with what types of knowledge that you're going to be sharing, and then the tools in terms of, the systems on how do you gather this information, how do you distribute to everyone, and ensure accountability to the members. So that was one of the important things. And one of the last thing that my sister is reminding me of is the issue of academia, in terms of how do we then make sure that we hold them accountable in terms of implementing policies, because I had shared with them that currently Department of Higher Education requires us to decolonize the curriculum. So how much of that are the tertiary institutions doing? And subsequent to that, there's also multilingualism policy that has been enacted by the Department of Higher Education as well. So in terms of the institutions in implementing those things, how far are they? So it's part of, in terms of what this association needs to look at, in terms of calling them and not calling them, monitoring if these policies that were enacted are being implemented. I think that's where it ends. Thank you.
Good day, Sanmanan Dumelang Abshin. My name is Hlengiwe Mkhasibe. First of all, I'd like to profusely apologize to my team for arriving late. Little did I know that I would be in the presence of such greatness. And when I say greatness, I mean everyone in here. Thank you so much. The team that was dealing with professionalism, Ubaba Uhlope, was leading us on these issues that are as follows when it comes to us making certain that we are professional at all times. The first one, or I'll just list them at first, the issues relating to the LPC. And I'm certain in a minute you will understand what we're talking about. We then spoke about briefing patterns. We also then spoke about forensic skills. And lastly, we dabbled into guidelines for acting judges. The first topic on what was discussed and imparted to us by Ubaba Hlope was us making certain as practitioners. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not in practice. I'm the acting senior magistrate at Point, but I'm saying us because we're speaking to ALPA members who are both aspiring to be on the bench or that are in practice currently. Make certain that you steer clear of tapping into monies that do not belong to you as a professional. The minute you touch the trust account, you are introducing yourself to be, I remember there was an example that Ubaba Hlope made. Once you then go into issues that impact you as a professional, as a legal professional into the LPC, you'll be transported like you would be as if you are on the conveyor belt. You get in and you get hooked onto those, you'll be out as soon as the conveyor belt has reached the time to let you go. That's the first important thing. Rather find creative ways as ALPA to generate wealth. I'm glad that both a finance repertoire and the previous repertoire were talking to something that's quite interesting to generate wealth as ALPA, and they tapped into CETA. I'm not certain why legal professionals shy away from training, because that is one way of making certain that your pockets and your tummies are fed and you can continue running what you love and do it without struggling for food and end up making mistakes. So you find ways of creating wealth. Secondly, briefing patterns, as we know, it has been a sore issue. There's an article Ubaba Hlope has written on this, and of course nothing has been done about it. That mention was made. However, it needs to also be noted that, be that as it may, when work is given to us as Africans, and we're shying away in our group from referring to ourselves as blacks, because we are Africans as we are in Africa, make certain that the quality of work that you produce, it's quite sad, because mention was also made from his angle of being a judge when we are, or when he is presiding, he was presiding, when arguments are made that are unnecessary. It shows that the quality of work being presented, there was absolutely no preparation for coming to the bench in the first place, and yet we want to then come back and say we want to be briefed as the other counterparts or our other colleagues are. That means we need to constantly upskill ourselves and make certain whatever it is that we produce is something that when the fight of briefing patterns is finally won at some stage, we have, as ALPA, quality lawyers. As a matter of interest, you can go and tap into the 1989 Transkei Law Journal and read what Ubabu John Hlophe has written on the issues of land. That is just a by the way, so that you are aware of that. Point number 3 that we discussed were your forensic skills. The importance, for instance, was made of the importance as a lawyer to get to do a criminal trial from beginning to the end. Upskill yourself, trial advocacy. One suggestion was that we should have what has been mentioned by the previous group, which includes academia. We should have ways to, again, upskill ourselves, have training, have mentorships of sorts within ALPA to make certain that exposure is given to each and every one. So get onto trial advocacy, and yes, it is agreed, I see, Baba is agreeing, that we need to have our own training material. There is no point in having a beautiful name and movement like this and bring down such esteemed, amazing guests, and we do nothing to make a change, and we just literally become an empty team and make a lot of noise. So refresher courses were also proposed to be done by ALPA in order to make certain that you upskill the members. On the last and most important, I believe, point, well, all of them are important, but guidelines for acting judges is what we then delved into. Baba promised that he's going to then source out those and have them distributed for members to have them. However, one of the most important things that was mentioned by Baba Hlophe was we also need to be honest with one another. He says, he made an example to say, Hlengiwe, if you want, no, he didn't say Hlengiwe, I'm saying Hlengiwe. If I wish to go and act and be on the bench, we all know the bench starts the High Court. We are still here for now in the DCM. If I wish as a member of ALPA to go and act on the bench and be an acting judge in the High Court, I need to tell my peers in ALPA. We need to have a way of being honest with one another and say, Msutu, I think at this point, can we then strengthen you with 1, 2, 3? And you halt a bit, or can we bring up Soren? So an example was made that if you're the chairperson of ALPA, I'm not going to use another, I'm going to use this one, it doesn't automatically mean that you are eligible to go and act or apply for an acting post or put your name in and go in and act as a judge of the High Court or whatever else. We need to then introduce what is referred to by Hlophe, peer review amongst ourselves. And that takes honesty. If we start doing each other favors as ALPA, then we are failing. We might as well pack up the membership, close it down, let's leave it. He says judges are amongst us, we are all judges. This point he made. It doesn't necessarily mean that when somebody gets to be a judge, it happens magically. We judge now, so start preparing now so that when you do get to that space, you produce the type of quality of work that you won't then say what ugly element also reared its head to say, at some point, I as a black judge, oh, sorry, pardon me, we have been so indoctrinated. I as an African female judge, for instance, am being treated unkindly by my peers or treated differently as compared to my peers. In the meantime, I'm also not doing anything to make certain that whatever work I produce as well as a judge is work that is said to be on par. He made a very important point in saying that you must not only be a judge that is able to read, you can read the law, but if you're not creative enough, you must think outside the box, the way that you prepare even your judgments, the way that you receive the evidence, the fact that this party has given you this and then you sit there and go and prepare a judgment on that doesn't help you write creative and brilliant judgments. It says when you've received that evidence, go above and beyond and see, okay, this is what Mkhasibe said, and this is what Utango said. This is the law that they laid down as against whatever evidence they're giving me. Let me see if this is true. Let me see how far I can take this. Push the boundaries, because if you don't upskill yourself in that fashion and you think you're just drafting I'm just drafting a judgment, or I'm just drafting heads of arguments that are long-winded. Just because you want to show up in high court with thick papers and be seen to be doing something, it does not help. Your judgments, your heads of arguments while you're in practice must be very creative in their nature. In other words, go out there, research on whatever topic that is there. One thing that's also important that he stated when it comes to the issue of producing quality of judges, be mindful that you're not going to be a criminal law judge or criminal court judge or a civil court judge. So you'll be forced to deal with things that you've never been exposed to at all. So if you're not getting yourself used to, one, improving your quality of work, two, upskilling yourself in whatever manner, you will ultimately be an embarrassment on the bench, and you'll be embarrassing yourself because ALPA won't be embarrassed because we wouldn't take you there in the first place. I believe so. Right? Engagement is going to be done or proposed, has been proposed rather, by Ubab Hlope to engage Mampoyo Dlwati, the JP, in order to deal with another issue that also was a tentacle to our discussions, but mainly the issue of the training, and also to tap into this whole thing that was raised of forum shopping. Whatever their involvement, or as the JP, her involvement might be, Ubaba is willing to then approach in that respect and see how we can assist us as ALPA. And he said we must use him. That's another thing that was important that he said is available for him to be used in terms of being resourceful, not use him for anything else. Yabo. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yabo.
Thank you, Ms. Hlengiwe. Colleagues, I'm aware one last group hasn't presented. I just received information from the kitchen that lunch will be served exactly at 1 o'clock because they'll be closing the kitchen at 2. So as my program indicates that lunch is scheduled for 1:30, it has moved 30 minutes earlier, and I suggest we do interact with our meals right now. Then we'll take the next presentation after lunch. Lunch is served on the second floor. From here, you go upstairs, 1, 2, on the left. So you either take a lift or you can walk upstairs. Let's take lunch, colleagues. Thank you. I assume that people understand lunch is 30 minutes. The program suggests it's 30 minutes. Let's take 30 minutes. If we take even a shorter period, that would be appreciated. I only need 5 minutes, Mina, to eat my meal.
Should la fangize lapha.
Ayithenga kudala ayihlukana mabona ayihlale nesikhwama.